The yard was cold and silent, filled with the smell of rust and old iron. Broken towers stood like dead bones under a gray sky. In the middle of this forgotten place, a group of guards dragged a small alien woman across the dirt. Her legs were weak, her clothes were torn and covered in dust. Her thin arms shook with every step. She did not fight them. She did not cry. She only kept whispering something in a soft, broken voice. The guards laughed as they reached the center post. One of them carried a dirty brown sack. Without a word, he shoved it over her head and tied it tightly around her neck. Her voice stopped. She froze like a statue, blind and helpless. The guard stepped back and smiled. "She's crazy," one of them said with disgust. "Don't listen to her." "Not a single word," another replied. They tied her hands behind the post with metal wire, leaving her standing there like a forgotten scarecrow. Then they walked away, their boots making hard sounds on the cracked ground. Soon the yard was empty again. From the shadow of a ruined wall, someone was watching. A human supply runner, young and quiet, stood very still. He had come to this colony for work, not to get involved. His jacket was patched. His eyes were sharp but tired. He had seen cruelty before, but this was different. He saw how they placed a small broken bowl of water on the ground, far from her reach, and left her to die. The wind blew across the yard, lifting dust around her feet. She moved her head slightly under the sack as if trying to smell where the water was. Then she went still again. The human felt something twist in his chest. She was not a criminal. She was not dangerous. She was just weak and alone. Yet they had called her crazy and left her to starve. Hours passed. The sky grew darker. The guards never returned. A cold night fell over the prison yard. The woman stood there, tied to the post like a silent ghost. The human stayed hidden, but he could not take his eyes off her. He thought of the stories he had heard in the market. "There's an alien widow in the yard. Lost her mind after the war. Whispers to herself. Sees things that aren't there." The workers laughed when they told those stories like she was a joke. But watching her now, he didn't see a joke. He saw someone broken, not mad. Someone who had lost everything. The moonlight fell on the cracked ground. A rat ran past her feet. She didn't move. Maybe she didn't even feel it. The human waited, telling himself to leave. She wasn't his problem. This colony wasn't his fight. But something inside him refused to walk away. Late in the night, when the patrol drones hummed far away, he moved from the shadows. Quiet like a ghost, he crossed the yard. His boots made no sound on the dust. He stopped a few feet from her. The smell of old cloth and rust filled his nose. She was breathing slowly. Each breath was shallow, tired. Her hands trembled weakly against the wire. He looked at the sack over her head. It was old, stained, crawling with dust mites. He imagined how dark and lonely it must be inside that sack. No air, no light, no hope. He reached into his pocket. He had half a ration bar left from his shift. He broke off a piece and gently placed it on the ground near her feet. She didn't react. The human stepped back quickly, heart racing. For a moment he waited, holding his breath. Then he saw it. Her toes shifted ever so slightly. She had noticed. Slowly, like someone waking from a dream, she bent her knees and reached down with her foot, trying to pull the food closer. She failed. The wire held her too tight. She gave a soft, broken sound, half a whimper, half a sigh. The human felt something sharp stab inside his chest again. Pity. He stepped closer, crouched, and pushed the food gently to her feet. Then he disappeared back into the shadows before she could sense him. Minutes passed. He saw her toes move again. This time she picked up the food with her bound hands, lifted it under the sack, and ate in small, slow bites. When she finished, she stayed still for a long time. Then softly she began to hum. It was not words, just a melody, a lullaby maybe. The sound was broken and low, but it carried through the cold air like a small flame. The human stayed hidden, listening. And in that quiet moment, as the wind moved across the yard and the broken towers stood like dead giants around them, he knew something deep inside himself had already changed. He was no longer just a watcher. He had crossed an invisible line, and he would return. The next night came cold and silent again. The yard looked the same, broken towers, rusted fences, and black dust floating like dead snow. But something had changed. The human came back. He told himself it was only curiosity, nothing more. He told himself he just wanted to see if she was still alive. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He wanted to help her. He didn't even know her name, yet her image had followed him all day, standing alone with that dirty sack over her head, whispering in the dark like a forgotten spirit. He crept through the shadows of the ruined wall, careful of the patrol drones buzzing high above. His boots sank softly into the dry soil. He kept his breath slow and quiet. She was still there, still tied to the same post, still wearing that filthy sack. But her body was thinner now. Her arms hung lower, her knees bent like they could break at any moment. He stopped a few steps away, hidden behind a broken crate. Then he heard it, a voice, soft, slow, fragile. She was whispering again. The sound floated through the night like a ghost's breath. At first, he could not understand her words. They were not in any human language, but her tone was not wild. It was gentle, like someone singing to a child. The melody rose and fell like waves, quiet and broken. It wasn't madness. It was grief. The human's chest tightened. He waited until she paused. Then he slid a small pouch of water from his belt and placed it on the ground near her feet. A rat scurried past as he stepped back. For a moment, she didn't move. Then her fingers twitched, slow and shaky. She bent down and caught the pouch with her bound hands. She bit it open and drank. Water spilled down her chin. She gasped like someone who had forgotten how to breathe. The human stayed hidden and watched her. He saw her shoulders rise with each swallow as if life was slowly returning. Then something strange happened. She stopped drinking and spoke. Her voice was soft, cracked, and weak, but clear. "I remember." His laughter. The words froze the human in place. She turned her covered head slightly, facing the sky. "My child, my little star. They took him. I sang to him in the dark." Her words broke apart into silence. The human felt his throat close. She wasn't crazy. She was mourning. He saw her shoulders shake under the sack. No sound came, but he knew she was crying. The wind howled through the broken fences. The night swallowed her sobs. The human clenched his fists. He had seen suffering before, but this was different. This was cruelty made slow and cold. He knew if the guards found him here, he would be punished or worse. But still he could not leave, so he waited. Hours passed. The stars turned like silent watchers. Then near dawn, he saw her head move again. She was humming now, the same melody as before. Soft, tired, yet full of love. The human leaned his head against the crate, closing his eyes. The lullaby wrapped around him like a thread of light in the dark. Something inside him whispered, "She's still alive. She still remembers love." The sound of boots in the distance snapped him awake. 2 guards were walking near the far gate. He ducked lower and held his breath. They didn't come close. One of them laughed. "Still breathing, is she? Thought she'd be dead by now." "Leave her," the other said. "She's just a ghost waiting to vanish." Their voices faded as they left. The human stayed hidden until the yard was silent again. Before leaving, he placed another small piece of ration bar near her feet. Then he whispered, though he knew she could not hear him, "Stay alive. Just one more night." He disappeared into the shadows as the first rays of sunlight touched the broken towers. Far behind him, the alien widow stood alone. She could not see him, but somehow she seemed to pause, as if she felt that someone was still listening. And for the first time, her head lifted a little. The third night was colder than the last. A silver moon hung low over the ruins, painting the ground in pale light. The human came again, moving like a shadow between broken fences and piles of dead metal. He carried more food this time, and a small knife hidden in his sleeve. His heart beat hard in his chest. He had told himself not to come back. It was too dangerous now. Guards had doubled their patrols, and anyone caught near the yard without clearance could disappear forever. But he couldn't stay away. Something inside him needed to know the truth about her. She was still there, still tied to the same post, still wearing the same sack over her head. But something about her was different tonight. She was standing taller. Not strong, but not broken either. Her hands were still bound, yet they no longer trembled as much. She stood like someone waiting, not someone dying. He watched her from the shadows, and then with a deep breath he made a choice. He stepped out. His boots crunched on the dust. She flinched at the sound, her body tensing under the sack. "Don't be afraid," he whispered, no answer. only the wind. He walked closer, slow and careful, until he stood right in front of her. Her head tilted, like she was trying to see him through the cloth. He reached out and touched the rope around her wrists. It was sharp and rusted. He cut just enough for her arms to loosen a little, not enough for her to break free yet. Then he reached for the sack. It felt wet and stiff, as if soaked in old blood long ago. He hesitated, then pulled it off. The woman gasped as cold air hit her face. The human froze. Her skin was pale silver, cracked like porcelain. Her hair, tangled and thin, shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes glowed softly like twin stars buried under grief. They were not wild eyes. They were tired, sad, and they were watching him. You. Her voice was soft and broken. You are not like them. He swallowed. Who did this to you? She looked past him at the towers and her lips trembled. The leaders. The ones who smile in gold halls. They call me mad because I saw what they did. What did you see? He asked quietly. Her voice shook. A purge. They came with fire and poison. My village, my mate, my son, all gone. I hid. I lived. I should not have lived. The human's breath caught in his throat. They said it was sickness, she whispered. But it was order. They wanted the poor gone. Fewer mouths, fewer cries. He stared at her, heart pounding. Everyone in the colony believed her village died from disease. The leaders had said it many times on public broadcasts. But her eyes held no lies. They held nightmares. They fear me, she continued, because I remember. Because I speak. So they covered my head and told the world I was mad. She looked down at the ground. I am not mad, she said. I am only alone. Her words cut deep into him. For a long time, the human said nothing. He just stood there, watching the pale glow of her eyes, and something inside him cracked open. She wasn't dangerous. She wasn't crazy. She was the last witness, and they had tried to erase her. Suddenly, she stepped closer, her chains rattling. You should leave, she said. They will kill you if they see you with me. Maybe, he said. But I can't leave you here. Her eyes widened slightly, like she had forgotten what kindness looked like. The wind rose, carrying the bitter smell of rust between them. Then he pulled the sack from the ground, crushed it in his fist and threw it far into the dark. You're not crazy, he said, and you're not invisible. Her lips trembled. A single tear slipped down her cracked silver skin. For the first time, she smiled. Small, broken, but real. And for the first time, he saw hope in her glowing eyes. The next night came with heavy clouds. No stars, no moon, only darkness as thick as smoke. It was the perfect night to vanish or to die trying. The human moved like a shadow across the broken yard. His heart pounded in his ears. Every step felt loud, though the wind howled hard enough to hide his breath. He carried a small satchel on his back. Inside were food, water, a plasma cutter, and a single silent promise to himself. She will not die here. He had removed her sack the night before. Tonight he would remove her chains. She stood as he had left her, bound to the rusted post, her silver skin dull under the black sky. But something about her posture had changed. She was not slumped. She was waiting. Her glowing eyes lifted when he appeared from the shadows. You came back, she whispered. Of course, he said softly. We don't have much time. A soft crack of electricity echoed from a far watchtower. He froze, then silence again. The guards were patrolling closer each night. Someone had told them the widow was moving again, growing stronger. They wanted to end it before she could speak. He crouched behind the post, pulling the plasma cutter from his bag. The tool gave off a faint blue light as he pressed it to the chain. Sparks hissed softly like whispers. Be still, he murmured. She stood like stone while the metal links glowed, then snapped. One chain fell to the dirt with a dull clink. The human froze, listening, no alarms. No boots, he cut the second chain, then the third. Suddenly her arms dropped free. She gasped, clutching her wrists. They were thin and bruised, marked deep by rusted wire. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded slowly. Good. Quiet now. Follow me. They slipped into the shadows of the yard. He led her through the skeletons of collapsed buildings, staying low and close to the ground. The cold wind tore at their clothes. Every sound felt like a scream. Every crack of metal made him flinch. Halfway across the yard, her legs buckled. He caught her before she fell, holding her weight against his chest. "You're okay," he whispered. "Just one more stretch." She looked up at him, eyes glowing faint in the dark. "Why are you doing this?" He hesitated, then spoke the only truth he had. "Because no one else will." They moved again, slower but steady. At the edge of the yard, he stopped near a rusted gate. A red sensor light blinked above it like a watching eye. He pulled a small signal jammer from his belt, a stolen scrap of tech from the supply depot. He pressed it to the gate's panel. The red light flickered, then went black. "Now," he said. They slipped through. Outside the yard, the air smelled different. Less dead, more like cold rain and ash. They stayed in the shadows, following the old drainage tunnels that ran beneath the colony. The tunnels were black and narrow, filled with dripping water and echoes of distant machinery. Their feet splashed softly in shallow pools. Rats skittered along the walls. The woman's breathing grew harsh. She was pushing herself beyond her strength. He slowed, letting her rest against the wall. "They will hunt you," she whispered. "For helping me?" "Let them," he replied quietly. "I'm not leaving you behind." Her lips trembled. "No one has ever said that to me." He looked at her glowing eyes, dim but alive. "Then let this be the first time." They moved again, crawling deeper into the tunnels. The hum of generators above masked their sounds. At last, they reached an old service hatch. Rust flaked from its hinges. He forced it open and helped her climb out. Cold night air hit them like a wave. They stood on the edge of the industrial zone beyond the colony's central walls. Out here were the freight pads, where cargo ships came and went without questions. The woman stared at the open sky. It was the first time in years she had seen it without cloth over her head. Her lips parted as if tasting freedom. The human touched her shoulder. "We're not safe yet. One more night and we'll be gone." She turned to him, and for a brief second he saw something new in her eyes. Not fear. Not grief, hope. The sky burned red as dawn touched the ruined horizon. Black smoke drifted from distant chimneys, curling like dying snakes. The human stood with the alien widow behind a pile of broken metal crates, watching the cargo yard. Massive freight ships rested on cracked landing pads. Their engines hummed low, waiting to rise into the stars. Guards walked along the fences with heavy rifles, their boots thudding in perfect rhythm. This was their only chance. If they missed this ship, there would be no second try. The woman's legs trembled. Her silver skin was pale like cold moonlight, her glowing eyes dull from hunger and exhaustion. But she stood tall beside him, her hands clenched, her gaze steady on the ships. "You ready?" he whispered. She nodded once. He took a deep breath. "Then stay close." No matter what. They slipped from the shadows, moving low along the old conveyor line. The wind carried the sound of grinding machines, masking their footsteps. Every second stretched long and sharp. A drone floated past overhead, its red light sweeping the ground. They dropped flat behind a container. The beam slid over the metal, then moved on. They rose and kept going. Ash crunched softly under their boots. The whole yard smelled of burning fuel and rusted iron. At the far end, a small freighter waited with its rear hatch half open, ready for launch. A few workers loaded boxes into its hold, then left toward the fueling tower. This was it. The human grabbed her hand. "Run!" They ran, the ground blurred under their feet. The wind whipped at their faces, then a sharp voice cut the air. "Stop!" A guard had spotted them. "Run faster!" the human shouted. The woman pushed her weak legs harder, gasping, her chains clinking with each step. Sirens wailed across the yard. Red lights flared. Guards poured from the towers like black insects, shouting, raising their rifles. The human's chest burned as he sprinted. He reached the freighter's ramp and shoved her up ahead of him. Blaster fire cracked behind them. Sparks burst from the ground. She stumbled. He caught her waist and dragged her up the ramp. A bullet ripped through a crate inches from his head. He didn't stop. They crashed inside the cargo bay and rolled behind a stack of metal boxes. The engines rumbled. The ship was launching. "Hold on," he gasped. The ramp began to rise. A guard leaped onto it, firing wildly. The human lunged, slamming his shoulder into the guard's chest. The man toppled backwards, falling off the ramp to the ground far below. Then the hatch sealed shut. The freighter lifted from the pad, engines roaring like thunder. Gravity slammed them to the floor as the ship climbed through the smoke. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Only their ragged breathing filled the air. Then, silence. The engines settled into a soft hum as the ship drifted toward the outer lanes. They were gone. The human sat up slowly. His body shook from the sprint, the fight, the fear. The woman knelt across from him, clutching her chest. Her eyes glowed brighter now, soft and alive. "We made it," he whispered. She stared at him, her lips trembling. "You risked your life." "For me," he nodded. "I told you. No one else would. So I had to." Her eyes filled with tears. "I thought I would die with that sack over my head," she said. Forgot how the stars looked. Forgot how freedom felt. He leaned his head against the wall, closing his eyes. "You're not dying. Not while I'm here." The ship jolted as it broke through the last layer of ash clouds. Light spilled through the cracks in the cargo bay doors. Cold silver light from space. She turned her face toward it. Her cracked lips curved into the faintest smile. For the first time, she saw stars again. The freighter drifted through black space like a silent ghost. Behind them, the colony shrank to a dull red dot wrapped in choking smoke. Ahead lay only stars, sharp and endless. Inside the cold cargo bay, the human sat on the floor with his back against a crate. His chest still rose fast from the run, but his eyes stayed fixed on the alien widow. She sat a few feet away, hugging her knees, staring at nothing. The silver glow in her eyes flickered like dying firelight. She had not spoken since they launched. She looked like someone holding a storm inside her bones. The human broke the silence first. "We're safe. For now." Her head lifted slightly. "Safe," she echoed, as if tasting the word. Then she gave a hollow laugh. "There is no safe. Not while they still breathe." He leaned forward. "Tell me who they are." Her glowing eyes locked on his. "They call themselves the Council of Purity," she said quietly. 7 who rule from the Golden Spire. They smile on the screens, dressed in white. "The people think they are saviors." She spat the last word like poison. "But they are murderers." Her voice sharpened with each word, the cracks fading from her tone. "They ordered the culling," she continued. "Said the lower castes were diseased. Said they were saving resources. They burned the villages, poisoned the wells, buried the bodies under the slag pits." Her hands trembled as she spoke, not with fear, with rage. The human's face hardened. He had heard rumors, whispers in the supply tunnels, but never dared believe them. "I survived," she whispered. "I carried my son through the fire." He coughed from the smoke. "He begged me to keep running." Her eyes went distant, glassy with old pain. "They caught us at the checkpoint. They tore him from my arms. I never saw him again." Her voice broke. The human's throat tightened. "That's why they called you mad," he said softly. She nodded. "They had to. I saw too much. They feared my words. So they put a sack over my head, called me broken, and left me to die." Her fingers moved to the side of her neck. She pressed gently, and a faint click came from beneath her skin. "Before they caught me," she said, "I took something from their archives." She pushed back her tangled hair and turned her head. A small metallic node glimmered just behind her ear, half hidden in her silver skin. "This holds everything," she whispered. "Orders, maps, names, proof of the genocide." The human stared, stunned. "You have evidence," he said. "Yes," she replied. "Enough to burn their golden spire to the ground." Silence fell between them like deep water. Then the human exhaled slowly. "We can't go back to the colony. They'll kill you the second you appear." "I know," she said. "That is why we go to your world. To your leaders. To show them the truth." He hesitated. Humans had their own corruption, their own greed, but they also had courts, news networks, people who still believed in justice. "They will listen," he said finally. "They have to." Her glowing eyes softened. "You believe me?" "I do," he said. For the first time since he had met her, she smiled without sadness. It was small, fragile, but real. "You are the first to believe," she whispered. He smiled back faintly. "Then let's make sure I'm not the last." The ship's speakers crackled above them. Entering human-controlled space in 6 hours. They both looked at each other. 6 hours until safety. Or 6 hours until death. Because he knew the council would not let her go so easily. They would come. They would try to silence her forever. But now the human was ready because she was no longer just a broken widow with glowing eyes. She was the last voice of a murdered world, and he would protect that voice until the stars themselves went dark. The freighter trembled as alarms wailed through the cold metal halls. Red lights flashed across the cargo bay, painting everything in pulses of blood. They had found them. The human slammed the bay's control panel shut and locked the door. Outside, distant engines roared. Patrol ships, sleek and black, were closing fast. Their signal jammers had failed. The Council had sent hunters. The alien widow stood near the wall, clutching the edge of a crate. Her silver skin glimmered in the red light, her glowing eyes fierce and bright. "They will destroy the ship," she said calmly, though her voice trembled. "They would rather burn me than let the truth escape." "Then we send it before they reach us," the human said, grabbing a data core from his bag. "That implant in your head. Can it transfer everything?" She nodded. "Yes, but it must go to a high-band relay. This ship has one, in the bridge." "Then let's move." They ran through the narrow corridors as the ship shook under enemy fire. Panels sparked and hissed. Gravity shifted, making them stumble. The bridge was a small circular room of cracked glass screens and dusty controls. Stars spun wildly outside the window as the freighter tried to dodge incoming blasts. The human dropped into the pilot's chair and slammed switches. "I'll keep them busy. You send the files." The widow went to the console and pressed her fingers against the port. A faint blue light glowed from behind her ear as the node opened. Thin wires uncoiled like silver threads and slid into the panel. "Transmission ready," the ship's system said in a calm female voice. "Do it," he said. She closed her eyes. Data poured from her mind in glowing streams. Images of fire, poisoned wells, mass graves. Voices of the Council giving secret orders. Numbers of the dead. Proof of the genocide. Everything she had carried alone for years rushed into the system. The enemy ships hit them again. The bridge shook hard. "A console exploded in sparks. Hurry!" the human shouted. "Almost done." The shields dropped with a loud warning tone. The patrol ships were surrounding them now, locking weapons. The humans slammed the thrusters and sent the freighter spinning. Enemy fire missed by meters. The woman's body shook as the last data drained from her. "Transfer. Complete. Then send it." She slammed her palm on the console. The system voice spoke again. "Broadcasting. Galaxy-wide." A beam of white light shot from the ship's antenna into the darkness faster than anything chasing them. It carried her truth across the stars, to every network, every planet, every human and alien station that would listen. The patrol ships froze. Then one of them broke formation and turned away. Then another. They had seen the broadcast. They knew the secret was no longer secret. The remaining ships pulled back without firing. The Council's hunters were retreating. The freighter floated silently in their wake. The human dropped his hands from the controls, chest heaving. "It worked," he whispered. "You did it." The widow sank to the floor, trembling. The blue glow faded from her implant. Her eyes flickered softly. "I thought I would die before anyone knew," she whispered. He knelt in front of her and took her cold hands gently in his. "Now they all know. They can't bury your voice anymore." Tears welled in her glowing eyes. "You believed me," she said, "when no one else did." He gave her a tired smile. "I always did." Outside the cracked windows, the stars shone sharp and bright. They were no longer silent. Because now the galaxy had heard her and she was no longer alone.